Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 156.
I'm Cam and this is Julie. This week's Torah portion, we will be in Deuteronomy 10 to the end of 25, which is 25:19.
If you would like to visit previous year's Doc Talks, last year was 110 A and B. That is the Torah and the Haftorah portion. And the year before that was 61 A and B. That is the Torah and the Brit Hadashah. And before that, it is episode 8 A and B. And I believe that's also the Torah and the Brit Hadashah.
It is. You're correct. Very good. All right, so let's move on into the portion. And I thought we kind of start at the other end, kind of in the middle. I want to look at something in chapter 23. So in chapter 23, 9 is where I wanted to start. And this has to do with, it says, when the camp goes out against your enemies, then you shall guard yourself from every evil matter. So this is talking about when they're going to go in the land, and then they're going to go and set camp up. So this isn't the camp that they're in. This is the future battleground camp. And he talks about that he's going to be among them. And if you move down to verse 14, it says, "For the Lord your God walks in the midst of your camp to deliver you and give your enemies over to you. Therefore your camp shall be holy," or set apart, "so that he does not see unclean matters among you." Now, I want to bring this up because this is when they're out in the field, in the wilderness, wherever they're going to battle.
Okay.
The Lord is going with them. He says he's going to fight for them, right?
Okay.
But their job while preparing to fight is to keep themselves clean. And it makes the comment here about the man who has emission in the night. So basically a wet dream. That is not a sin, but it still opens a gateway that could promote a thought that then could be acted on, that then becomes an issue. So it's the Lord's just like, just go out for the day, and then you bathe, you do a mikvah, and then you come back in the evening at sunset. Not a problem. So it's not condemnation. It's just for the sake of everyone. If this happens, you need to go out. You go to battle, that's fine, but then don't come back into the camp until that time. And while this has to do with battle, I want to tie this in really with all of Deuteronomy. Okay. Because the whole point here of Deuteronomy is keeping the land clean so the Lord can remain in the midst and you can stay there too.
Right.
So on a smaller scale, he's showing them how to do this so that they can win the battle. But that's really what all of these are. You might look at example. It says in 22:6 that you shoo the mother bird away, right, so that you can take the eggs without having to, you're not killing them both. And anyway, there's a lot to it. But my point is that seems like no big deal. But that kindness to the animals is what another point of allowing them to stay in the land and be a witness to everybody. It's another that the Lord sees you have compassion, you're sharing my compassion.
Right.
And so we get all these opportunities to keep the mitzvahs, to walk in his ways, to show that we are walking like him. So when he looks down, he sees his own characteristics among his people like he should. In the beginning of Deuteronomy, I think it's Deuteronomy 4, is where we have the whole of the commandments, the 10 words, read. Mm-hmm. And the rest of this, until we get to the 27, which is the curses and blessing, is showing how we take that and we break it down. We've talked about that before. Right. This is basically just breaking down, hitting on highlights of how to make sure that those 10 words are acted out every day.
Right.
And what's the reason for the 10 words? So that we can be like him, right? So that we can honor him in all that we do. So while reading this whole set of it's kind of a mix. I feel like a little bit like I'm reading Proverbs, or they just threw a whole bunch in, and he shook it, and then it fell out, and they're like, okay, yeah.
I guarantee it has a purpose then.
Absolutely. Well, you kind of, okay. So in 23, where we have this about the battle, and the Lord saying, keep all these things clean, right? I'm going to walk among you. I mean, he's even talking about how to bury your excrement.
Right.
In battlefield.
Right.
These things
that
we're like,
step on it.
Exactly. He doesn't want to step on it, and he doesn't want you to either.
Well, my thought, okay, so as they're in battle, doing these things about the excrement, a lot of things, a lot of diseases, and a lot of bad things happen when you don't have good hygiene. Mm-hmm. And so if they're going to win the battle, it's it's almost like he's just, let's pump you full of everything that's going to help. You know, it's
Right,
like what
vitamins.
we do. Right. It's what we do when we want to take care of our bodies to
Right.
prevent disease and everything else. He's giving them
Right.
the
Because
formula.
then you're going to have a long life, and people are going to see this healthy life, and
You have more of a chance to be a witness, more of
Right.
a chance to prosper. You know, so many times we don't take our health seriously.
Yeah.
But we see right here the Lord does.
Oh,
The Lord absolutely takes their health seriously.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have the attitude of, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it.
Yeah,
He's like, no, I'm giving you the tools and the knowledge and the insight so you can take care of it.
I love it, and that's exactly what he's doing for on the bigger picture, staying in the land.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and if you think about in Revelation 19, the bride is to keep her garment clean. That's still her job.
Right.
In Exodus 19, still her job to cleanse her garment before the 10 words were given.
Right.
So that she would be in the right, or Israel would be in the right mindset and heart set to be able to receive it. So he could be among them.
Right.
That's all this points to.
Mhm.
So don't we want that in our lives? Don't we want him to be able to be among us? And if so, to walk without stepping on anything?
Right. And, you know, you saying that, just looking at it at another perspective, a different perspective about the getting the garments clean before the 10 words were given.
Mhm.
Knowing how important the 10 words were going to be,
Right.
let's get you in the best mindset so you can listen. It's like get in the front row, you know,
Oh, yeah.
get your notebook out, get your tape recorder ready, and be completely ready because the information I'm about to give you is vital.
Yes.
And
yes.
so the mercy, and we just think, oh, we got to do this. We just see it as things we have to do, not understanding that it's all for our benefit.
Right, and so
And
we
for
can
our good.
reflect him. That should make us want to do it.
Right.
Oh, I get to look like the Almighty Living God. Absolutely, I want to do that.
Right.
I do. So let's look up a little bit still in 23, and it talks about. We talked about this, I think, last year. The manzer, which is basically usually a bastard child. But one thing about that I want to throw out there. The importance of that is when it is an illegal marriage, like incest. It's something that cannot. It can't be sanctioned.
Right.
Okay. So it's a mix of something that shouldn't be. But here's what I find interesting is we have the Moabite and the Ammonite spoken of.
Right.
That's through an ancestral relationship. It didn't hit me till this year. I was like,
Lot's kids.
wait a minute. Lot's kids are in an ancestral relationship.
Right.
They could not. That marriage couldn't be. Now,
Wow.
when we go back to Judah and Tamar, that also being that she was the daughter-in-law is also a marriage that couldn't be. And they never did get married. But they couldn't have because it was an unlawful arrangement. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
That is
the next
interesting.
example that the Lord gives is exactly who can't be there. And and I meant to add this on earlier. You know, if you notice this week, purge the evil from our midst. We have it in 22:24, we have it in 22:22, we have it in 22:21. Several times, purge the evil from our midst. Again, going back to the idea of in the camp.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it out so the Lord can walk among us. This is
Right.
the month of Elul. The Lord's walking among his people. He's quickening their hearts, our hearts, reminding us, hey, here's some stuff to take care of before we get to the new year.
Right.
And so he's able to walk among us out of his mercy. But what we want is that he's always walking among us because of our reflection of his righteousness. We also see in 24:7 another one where it says, purge the evil from our midst. And that is, that's after the kidnapper. But right under that, then it says, take heed that an outbreak of leprosy to diligently guard and do according to all that the priest, the Levites teach you, as I have commanded them, so you shall guard to do. Remember what the Lord your God did to Miriam on the way when you came out of Egypt. Okay, so I bring this up because what is leprosy? It's Lashon Hara, right? It's the evil tongue.
It's the result of it.
Yeah, right. So here, you definitely don't want that in the midst of Israel. It is contagious to those who speak it and those who hear it.
Yes.
I mean, so it's just a bad thing all the way around. So right here, he's like, remember what happened there. So you will use that lesson to take heed. So you don't let that creep in. And just above, with the kidnapping, it was make sure that you cleanse purge the evil. And then we go down into this, which is now, okay, remember, diligently guard and remember. in 24, it talks about the Levirate marriage. So this is where a woman does not have anyone to have her husband's name go on, be carried on. Ruth is a great example. So your husband dies and you have no children. You have no male heirs. And the male heir is the one also who takes care of the mother when she gets older. So she marries the brother, our closest kin. He provides a child for her. When she gives birth to that male takes on the inheritance of the father that died and the name, so that name can be carried on. Then all the other children belong to the brother. Right. So the point here is to keep the name, preserve the name. And while you may not think about it, this really ties through all of this week. We have the idea of remember. At the end of this one, we have remember to forget about Amalek. You know, as Julie said in the past, it's measure for measure. Amalek's goal was to destroy, speak lies of Israel and destroy them. So the Lord's like, that's fine. I'm going to speak truth and you'll be destroyed. But he's going to use that to the end, that example, to continue to remind Israel to remember the nasty things that happened to Miriam. Because Amalek did nasty things. Does that make sense? Like, I see them right next to each other for that. Guard yourself so you don't do this, but you're still going to forget Amalek. You're going to not speak evil of Amalek, like Lashon Hara, but you're going to speak truth, in which the truth is, I told you to forget.
And the Lord said he's going to blot his name out from under. So I heard a really interesting teaching this week about this, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And he said, we see back in Exodus where Joshua went out with the armies to fight Amalek. And Moses had to hold his hands up, But Moses says, I'm going up here with my staff. And I'm going to fight up here, and you're going to fight down there. But then when he gets up there, he didn't do anything with his staff. He has two people holding it up. And it's believed that it was Aaron and her. And it's believed that her might be, Miriam's son. Yes. Or I also heard that could be her husband, but son. In other words, it's the male representative of the sister. So the two brothers holding up the arms, and the only way they could defeat it was by helping one another and loving one another. And the whole point was, you want to defeat the Amaleks in the world, then make sure you're taking care of your brother. That's how you defeat him. Otherwise, if you're to your brother, it doesn't matter how strong of an army you have, you'll be defeated. It
really goes all the way back to Cain and Abel. I'm not a brother's keeper. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And on that note, I'm going to move over a little bit. How it also weaves into here is, remember Abraham took care of Lot. I mean, he was that representative. Lot's daddy died. Abraham took Sarah and Lot so that his name would be carried on. His brother's name would be carried on. So, again, we see the ultimate where Abraham, part of his job was pursuing to carry on his brother's name. Here we have that brought up with the Levirate marriage. We see that with where Amorite and Moab turned against them. But there's still hope for them. And, hey, Ruth was a Moabite princess.
That's right.
And Solomon's wife, one of his wives, prominent wives, was Amorite. So through both of them, they end up in Messiah's line. One more thing I wanted to point out, and that kind of takes a part of 21 and 22. In 21, remember we talked about the glutton, the son that's going to be stoned. And what's interesting is they take the son to the elders of the city, and they're the ones that stone him if he's guilty. Only after real investigation. It's not the parents. Everywhere else, it's the two witnesses that do it, but not here. Because these two witnesses, the family, the parents, it's not to protect their household, it's to protect the nation. Because if you think about Deuteronomy 13, where we had the city that sins, well, that's got to start somewhere. It starts with bad attitudes. It starts with little, rumors here or grumbling there. And then that starts,
escalating.
And they collect friends, and then they just all mumble together. So I believe the parents are not responsible for stoning. The elders are, because this has to do with protecting the city. like we saw in chapter 13 of Deuteronomy, where they have to go out and investigate, and then they determine it's so. We have that in 22 again, where...
And what mercy that the parents don't have to do it. I mean, it's hard enough to have to say, Lord, I love you and your word more than I love my gluttonous son.
Right.
And taking him before the elders, and then just mercy that you don't have to be a part of the actual getting rid of the problem.
And realize these aren't little kids. These are older kids. I mean, they're getting close to 20. They're right at this. This is a real problem child. They're all these things. They can't just be like, he has an alcohol problem. They have all these problems.
All of them.
And I mean, not rebellious, like, I don't want to go. But I mean, they're cursing. There's just a whole bunch of stuff involved in that. When I say cursing, I don't mean like cussing. I mean like they're cursing their parents. There's a whole bunch of other things that are creating them guilty of the death penalty, because they're bringing curses actually on the entire
nation.
Yeah. And you think about, again, this is a part of between the blessing and curse part, right? Like we talked about before. And so, yeah, interesting. The Lord is showing right here, smack dab in the middle of that, saying, oh, yeah, because this would be a curse if you didn't do it.
Right.
Instead, just the one man has the curse, and he's the one that's going to be hung.
Right.
But y'all are all clear.
Right.
Again, what happened with Messiah, he took on our curse. I was hung on the tree.
Well, that was excellent. Excellent words for us today, and hope that you can glean something from what we said. It is really hot out here. We're trying to get through
We're a little like absent-minded professors.
Yes. Well, we'd like to thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week, and we hope you have a fabulous week. Shalom!